This week on Popular Hot Rodding Television, Cam and Dean discuss the basics of building a drag car and explain the importance of the power-to-weight ratio and traction. We'll get nostalgic as we visit the Goodguys March Meet in Bakersfield, California, and what makes this Kinney Bell Mustang seriously stout on the street and strip. Stay tuned and find out.
When I was a kid.
Remember lifting people up like that? It was hilarious.
Welcome to Popular Hot Rodding Television. I'm Cameron Evans.
And I'm Dean Skuza.
Now, the majority of performance enthusiasts out there, you guys want to make a drag car like this go quicker. Isn't that the goal?
That's my goal. I mean, we're not going to talk about nitro funny cars or top fuel dragsters or pro stock or anything like that, but chances are you have a 15 or 16-second car, you want to get that thing into the 11s or the 12s.
Now, when you're talking about building a drag car, you have to figure out how quick you want to go. This particular 70 Chevelle, it's legal to go as quick as 7.50 seconds down the quarter mile. But, yeah, with 462 inches of big block power and 2,400 pounds, it'll run 9s all day long.
Well, that's the thing. You hit it right on the head. It only weighs 2,400 pounds. I mean, it's all about weight and power. I mean, guys build these 800 cubic inch mountain motors thinking they're going to go into 7s. They have a 4,400-pound car. It ain't going to happen.
Now, Dean, you had a great example of a lightweight car going quick, right?
Yeah, it's a good example and an obscure one, too, but it was all true, I'm here to tell you. We're testing at Norwalk Raceway, my funny car, and this guy brings out an alcohol funny car chassis, a bare bones stock, small block Buick, just literally bolted the thing in this alcohol funny car
chassis. Smog and all, right?
Smog and all, air cleaner, thing goes out and runs 980, short shifting it, not even trying. But see, that's an example of it's easy to accelerate, no weight.
Now let's look at a more scientific explanation.
The art of building drag cars has evolved over the years around 3 basic considerations: power, weight, and traction. In simplest terms, power is the rate at which work is being performed. Work is done when force moves an object. Weight is the load or resistance that the force must overcome to perform work. So the main objective in drag racing is to build a car that is as powerful and weighs as little as possible under the rules. In other words, we are concerned about the power-to-weight ratio of the car. So don't forget about the benefits of reducing your car's weight. Assuming that everything else is equal, a 400-horsepower engine will always propel a 3,000-pound car quicker than a 3,500-pound car. Reducing weight can be cheaper than adding horsepower. There are 2 types of weight: sprung and unsprung. Unsprung weight is the weight of the car minus the weight of the suspension. Sprung weight is the weight of the suspension, tires, and wheels. To reduce unsprung weight, remove parts of the car that are not essential to operation or safety. Second, consider replacing heavy stock components with lightweight performance pieces designed for drag racing. For example, weight savings can easily be achieved by replacing sheet metal with fiberglass, modifying the interior, and moving the battery to the trunk over the right rear tire. To reduce sprung weight, consider lightweight racing brakes, lighter wheels, and narrower front tires. Another consideration is the positioning of the weight for better traction. Most street cars are front heavy, so position 50 to 53% of the overall weight of the car to the rear. Once you have a good power-to-weight ratio, traction is the key to running low ETs. We'll talk more about traction later in the show.
Now you see the importance of losing weight. When a drag car guy builds his car, one of the first things he does is loses the stock radiator and adds an aluminum radiator like this one from O2 Cool. Not only is it going to take a little bit of weight off the nose, but it's also going to make the car run a little cooler. Now he also runs an electric fan. After all, why would you want to run a fan belt when that robs the engine of power? That same principle goes for an electric water pump like this one from CSI. It's a lot lighter, and again, it may add a couple horsepower. An electric fuel pump like this one from Mallory, same principle. You're going to need more fuel, and you can put this back in the trunk instead of hanging it off the side of the engine. It helps weight transfer a little bit. One very important thing are the brakes. These particular drag car brakes from Strange are much lighter than any kind of stock drums. You'll see it's got a much smaller, thinner rotor on it and a billet aluminum caliper. Now, when it comes to tires, the little skinnies like this you see from Mickey Thompson, people don't just put them on for show. Aerodynamically, it's much narrower, so it'll punch a hole in the wind better. Plus, you got to figure half the tire would mean half the weight.
Now, there's a couple important things to remember when you're putting your car on a diet. For one, it could be expensive. I mean, for example, you could take titanium fasteners head to tail on this thing. We're talking upwards of $700 per pound. Sit down with your pencil, figure out what you're willing to spend per pound, what will fit into your budget. Another thing to remember is it's a collective process. It's very rare you're going to find one or two items you can pick on and save dramatic weight. Like all those components that Cam just showed you, you may save 5 pounds here, 8 pounds here, 6 pounds here. It's collective. Now, one of the most affordable places to look is the interior, and in some cases even free. I mean, take the rear seats, for example, and all the carpeting. Yank that out of there. Every pound you save is free weight savings. Same goes for the front seats, like this one here from Jazz. A lot lighter, and it's a better, comfortable ride. It gets you in there snug. Now, the dashboard, that's another place to look. Very heavy, right from Detroit. You can get an aftermarket one or actually hand fabricate your own, like our car owner did here. Now, the gauges, you're not going to find a lot of weight savings here, but you're going to definitely need reliability, like these Autometer ultralights. Again, collective, maybe a few ounces per unit, but collectively 6 or 7 of them, there's your couple pounds you're looking for. Speaking of a couple pounds, the driver should probably watch his weight. Believe me, I hear about it from Larson and Stewart all the time. After all, you know, fat, drunk, and stupid, no way to go through life.
Skuza, you seem to be batting 2 out of 3. You just keep working on it. Now, if you're going to move weight in your car, another thing you want to think about is taking the battery from the front of the car and putting it in the trunk. And use a battery box like this from Moroso because it keeps it secure. You don't want it bouncing around. Another thing, fuel weighs 7 pounds per gallon, so only take as much as you need with you down the strip. And if you're going quick enough, you may be required to run a Jazz fuel cell like this. It's a lot safer.
Let's see, 667, that's 2 out of 3, right? You're batting 1,000, baby. Nah, I'm just kidding, I have no room to talk. We'll be right back.
Actually,
I
get a little punch here, aren't I?
Coming up on popular hot rodding television, we'll learn more about building a drag car and the Kenny Bell Mustang.
Welcome back. You know, the Goodguys March Meet is by far the biggest nostalgia drag race in the world. Outside the racetrack in Bakersfield, California, they line up for like 2 miles in the morning to get in.
You know, my favorite part is seeing top fuel racing like it used to be. The old slingshots, really cool. So put on those rose-colored glasses and trip the light fantastic. Let's take a look.
The Goodguys 42nd March Meet Nostalgia Drag Races is a one-of-a-kind event with over 1,500 1972 and earlier drag racing vehicles, plus many manufacturers' supplier booths and lots of family entertainment. The March Meet fills every square inch of Famoso Raceway in Bakersfield, California, with alcohol-guzzling coupes and sedans, nitro-burning roadsters, hot rods, and street machines by the hundreds.
This is the 42nd edition of the Goodguys March Meet. This event goes back to 1958 when the Smokers Car Club of Bakersfield, California wanted to go out and do a little drag racing. So they came out to this very drag strip, which was an abandoned airfield at the time, and they held a car club drag race. Well, things kept growing and growing and growing, and eventually they had fuel dragsters added to the mix. And they brought names like Don Garlitz out to the West Coast to kind of mix up the top fuel battles with the West Coast cars. Names like Art Chrisman started appearing, Connie the Bounty Hunter Coletta. All these early fuel dragster drivers, Chris Karamessinis, descended upon Bakersfield as one of the major independent meets in drag racing history. The event has a very storied past. It's a legendary top fuel dragster meet. Bakersfield and Famoso Raceway was the common meeting grounds for all top fuel drivers around the country. They would come to Bakersfield, and this was one of the most prestigious events to win from the late 60s all through the 60s into the early 70s.
Nostalgia races have developed into the perfect platform for those who wish to drag race competitively and safely in an affordable arena. Almost all levels of drag racing are represented, but without a doubt, the kings of the quarter mile are the top fuel cars. Patterned after the slingshot dragsters of the late 60s, they create 3,000 horsepower to burn up the strip in under 6 seconds with a top speed near 250 miles per hour. It was Jack the Sheriff Harris of Kaysville, Utah, who carried away the Top Fuel Championship and $10,000 with his 5.99 at 244.56 mile per hour run. What a way to end a great day.
We want to give a shout out to our man John Drummond from the Good Guys for making that event happen. Right on, Willis.
Yeah, he's groovy and neato. We'll be right back.
He wears rose-colored glasses, too. He's got the kind with the faded tint.
Still to come on popular hot rodding television, Cam and Dean talk more about building a drag car, and we'll see what makes this Kenny Bell Mustang so stout. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to PHR TV. Earlier in the show, we talked about how to build a drag car and especially how to move weight around and try to get it over the rear wheels for more grip. But there's a big mechanical advantage you can gain in the rear suspension of your ride to try to get even more of it. You can go quicker. Check this out. You'll see what I mean.
As we talked about earlier, traction is vital to making your drag car go fast, so tire selection and suspension tuning are important. There are many good race tires on the market, but keep in mind, generally you want the tires to be as wide and as tall as possible for the largest contact patch, while staying within the rules and targeted gear ratios. The other key to good traction is the suspension. All the power in the world does little good if you can't get the car hooked up or planted. Here are a few basics. First, we must understand the physics involved. When a car launches from the starting line, weight is transferred to the rear. That's what causes the front end to lift. The second principle involves rotating force, torque, and torque reaction. Under hard acceleration, two things happen. The pinion gear wants to climb up the ring gear, and the rear end wants to rotate from right to left around the drive shaft. This creates a bad pinion drive shaft angle and firmly plants the left tire while lifting the right off the ground. This causes the car to lunge offline and wheel hop. On the common leaf spring rear suspension setup, the springs actually twist into an S shape as the rear end tries to rotate. To correct this problem, you'll need to add a traction aid, like a traction bar. The traction bar is designed to stop the twisting action of the leaf spring, thus keeping both tires firmly planted on the ground. If you're running a coil-type suspension, you'll want to install stiffer bushings and or preload one of the springs. When you get more serious, consider a link-type suspension. There are two types, the ladder bar and the four-link. Link suspensions are great performers and make tuning the suspension easy. Racers will also change the unloaded pinion angle to compensate for the pinion rotating upward during a run. Finally, get yourself a set of adjustable performance shocks so you can fine-tune your race setup. Believe it or not, you can lower your ET by tuning the front suspension via spring rates, shock valving, and travel limits.
This 1964 Plymouth Fury races in a class called Nostalgia Superstock. And it's a great place to race because it brings back the glory days of these cars. This one's aptly named, when they were looking at what traction devices work best on their cars. Now, of the three different types of traction devices you saw in that last piece, this one has the ladder bar, like this one from Competition Engineering. Now, what's cool about all of those traction devices is you can order them right out of a mail order catalog and bolt them onto your car.
You know, you could have the lightest car out there with the strongest power plant, all the right suspension components, but if you're not turning the right tire, you're going to leave a ton of ET on the track. So that's why you're going to want to run a slick, like these ET series from Mickey Thompson. The only problem with the slick is it's not legal on the street. Well, they thought of that. They've got their ET street legal tire. And if you look at the tread pattern, it's just enough to pass. You know what I'm talking about? Plus, it's fun to see the cop come out there with his little tape measure. This thing's going to pass. Now, you got the right tire. You got the right suspension components, you're getting that weight transfer just like you like it, well, guess what? It's like a be careful what you wish for scenario. You're going to need wheelie bars. Not just for safety either. It's a performance enhancer. It keeps the car loaded on the rear wheels rather than recoiling the thing from front to back.
All the traction devices in the world won't do you any good if you don't have the right safety equipment. After all, they won't let you down the drag strip without it. Now, this particular Plymouth has a 5-point harness, and it has not expired, and the driver's got a Snell-approved helmet, both things you'll need. Another thing you might need, depending on how fast you're going, is a roll cage. And roll cage padding is very important, especially for the street guys. Because after all, you hit your head like that in a street car without a helmet, you're going to have problems. Now, to find out what type of cage your car is going to need, you'll need to join the National Hot Rod Association, NHRA. And when you do, you'll get 48 issues of National Dragster, a patch, a pin, and a rule book to learn how to build a car like this.
Man, that whole spiel, that voice, it's so familiar to me. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does he? Now look, I'd like to talk about drag racing all day long, but I'm not going to. But one thing I can't do is leave without talking about the importance of fasteners. Not just in your motor, rod bolts, whatever. I'm talking about overall. And just like Cam said, they may be a requirement depending on what class you run. Now, ARP, they make bolt kits for just about every component on your car, whether it's oil pan studs or rod bolts, head bolts, the whole 9 yards. And I'm telling you, even if it's not a requirement, go ahead and run them, because I'm telling you, I broke a lot of bolts and it's not cool. Plus, you waste a lot of runs out there. Now, with that said, let's take a look at this week's rotting marketplace.
When building an engine, driveline, or chassis, we recommend using ARP fasteners. They're much stronger than stock and are made to exacting tolerances so they fit perfectly. To install exhaust headers or most any accessory, ARP stainless steel fasteners are the answer. They're polished to a brilliant luster that won't rust or corrode. For long-term reliability and everlasting good looks, you can't beat ARP. Get organized. PitPal products help you save precious time. PitPal offers over 300 products to help you organize your trailer, shop, or garage. Our free 55-page catalog features hundreds of products geared to put you ahead of your competition. PitPal has everything you need, right down to the parts sink. Call now to get your free PitPal catalog or to locate a dealer nearest you. Need parts for your classic Mustang, Camaro, Chevelle, El Camino, or Firebird? Then get your free Resto Parts catalog from National Parts Depot, the nation's fastest restoration parts supplier. Most orders delivered complete in just 1 to 3 business days. Call 888-893-FAST now for your free catalog. National Parts Depot. More of popular hot rodding television after this.
Welcome back. When the blower aficionados at Kenny Bell decided they wanted to be in the Mustang business, they found it was a little harder than they thought.
Yeah, admittedly, they said, man, this is too much work. But I'll tell you what, the 6 that they knocked out, beautiful pieces. Let's take a look.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a look back in time at what Kenny Bell liked to call the Ventoso.
Which means wind in Italian, and I'm telling you what, speaking of wind, it was windy at Palmdale the day we were out here.
Yeah, normally you see our PHR video valets dressed to the hilt, but she's wrapped up a little bit. That's Michelle, our valet for this week. It was cold out there.
30 degrees, but take a look at this car. I mean, 17s all around, even the wheels are one-off. All the body panels you see here, Kenny Bell did all the molding himself, a monumental task.
Yeah, that was one thing that Jim Bell, who owns Kenny Bell, wanted to do, was make sure that his car was very unique. So everything from the hood, the front bumper, the rear valance, even all the side trim, that's all stuff direct from Kenny Bell that was only made for these 6 cars, which means they may be worth something someday.
Oh, it's beyond a collector's item, and I don't know if anyone's ever tried to make their own molds and make their own body panels, even something simply like a scoop. It's not easy.
Well, one thing that was smart is they didn't try modifying like the rear quarter panels. They used a 17-inch wheel with Goodyears that would already fit into the stock wheel openings, and stuff like the tail lights where, I mean, yeah, you could change the change to a clear tail light or something, but they kept the stuff that Ford got right, they left it there.
Well, that's right. You know how particular Ford owners are. They don't want something that's completely weird. Take a look at the interior. Looks like a very stock thing, didn't change much. You'll see a boost gauge, which you know Kenny Bell needs one of those. And you'll see some switches there. He's going to be taking some timing out. It's, other than that, pretty stock.
Well, you know, Kenny Bell is famous mostly for these, in the late model vehicles, a lot of the trucks where he puts a twin screw supercharger, you know, up to help out a combination like this. How much power does this thing make? Over 400, right?
430 horse, and I mean, the hardcore drag racers will recognize the name Whipple Charger. That's exactly what the supercharger is. It's actually a screw compressor from Sweden.
Yeah, they're very efficient, and it's not that easy to take a 302 from like 94, 95, a mass air metered car, and put a blower on it. They've really accomplished something.
Here's Brent Morris, a longtime Kenny Bell employee, and you know what? You better trust a guy that's going to get on a 30-degree day, probably a 40-degree track temperature, and go ahead and get hog wild with this car, you know?
Well, Brent's got a lot of road time in these things. Check out this burnout. One thing that's interesting, Dean, is that for most basic street cars that look more like a road car with modified suspension like this, you usually don't see a line lock on it, but Kenny Bell's a drag racer going back to the day, so you know with a manual transmission, he needed a line lock to get the tires off.
I don't know how else you do a burnout without the line lock. Plus, I mean, everybody loves smoke.
You know, like you said, this was a very cold day, so I can't imagine he's going to be able to get much grip when he launches this thing. It's bad enough trying to launch a manual car.
That was what we call excessive tire spin. But yeah, you know what? Listen to this thing. I mean, it's hauling the nail. It's a lot of good air. It's like a mine shaft out
That thing's run 1180s in the past. Boy, Michelle and the Ventoso, pretty nice piece for Palmdale that day. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today on PHR TV. You know, we had fun talking about how to build drag cars. I mean, we talk about it all day long, but we don't have all day long. It's time to race.
That's right. Our friends at Barfly were cool enough to send us these racing bar stools of all things. And hey, Motorcycle Larry, thanks for fixing us up. You ready to go there, buddy?
Oh, I'm ready. How are we going to start this?
Okay, on 3. Ready?
Okay.
1, 3. Man, these things are tough. Ah! Come on,
I finally beat him at something. Well, let's see if we can slide it.
All right, I'm back. How many laps is that?
We're starting to lay some rubber down, Skuza. Check it out. We'll see you next week.
Next week on Popular Hot Rodding Television, Cam and Dean will explain what to look for in high-performance brakes. The action is hot and furious at the Fun Ford event in Atlanta, Georgia. And why can't young rodders in the Midwest get enough of this twin-supercharged, PlayStation-equipped 91 Camaro? Tune in and find out. Subscribe to Popular Hot Rodding Magazine, your source for the rod and performance scene, and save 75% off the single copy rate. Each supercharged issue is packed with killer muscle cars and street rods, the latest performance parts, and tuning tips to make your car look cooler and go faster. Plus, if you order now, you'll receive the latest issue of Popular Hot Rodding absolutely free. If you like what you see, you'll pay only $9.97 for 11 more issues. America's performance publication, Popular Hot Rodding. To order, call 877-9-RODDER today. If you'd like more information on Popular Hot Rodding Television and the products presented on the show, visit phrtv.com.